focus on the zero emissions heavy duty waste collection vehicles. And we will structure in the way that we will do some overall presentations, and then also will function as an online workshop, because we will have a small debate at the end of the session, especially in order to discuss potential market gaps and collaboration in order to advance on innovation. So we are beginning now at 2 o'clock in the afternoon, and it is expected that we finalize the webinar at 4 p.m. So just to very briefly go over the agenda of today. First of all, my colleague Antonio Envito will do a presentation of the market analysis that has been done within the ENTRANCE project for innovative zero-emission waste collection vehicles for urban services. And thereafter, we will proceed to presenting 2 specific examples that we have of implementation of use cases of zero-emission waste trucks within Europe. We have Richard from Rotterdam and Peter from Göteborg that will both give a short presentation of the examples from their cities. After this, we will proceed with a presentation from Anja from the Big Buyers Initiative in order to see exactly what have been the lessons learned and the market gaps that have been identified within the working group of the Big Buyers Initiative, specifically for this area of innovation. And this will be followed by a presentation from Wouter. That's the executive director from the BIPA. So the BIPA is the battery, also representative of the Batteries European Partnership Association. So he will do a short presentation of the strategic research agenda. So everybody's also informed about what are the upcoming innovative aspects that will be focused on for research and development for the next upcoming years. After this, myself, I'm Jeanette Bolter. I will do a presentation on the funding opportunities that currently exist in Europe for implementing zero-emission waste collection vehicles for urban services. And then finally, we will finalize the session today with some questions that we have prepared for you, and with the intention of having a specific debate panel, as mentioned earlier, in order to try and identify what would be the next steps in order to overcome the market gaps or the potential problems and barriers that might currently exist in order to ensure the market implementation of these types of vehicles. So starting off, I will leave the word with my colleague Antonio Envito.
Yes, thank you very much, Janet. I start with sharing my screen. So can you see the screen?
Yes, perfectly well.
Okay, perfect. So thank you very much, Janet. Hello, everyone, and thank you for attending the meeting today. I will present the market analysis on the decarbonization of waste management services in urban areas by identifying the currently available vehicles. But I do a brief description of our company, Pinot Group, and then I will show you some data resulting from the analysis that I have carried out. Pinot Consultants is an established market leader in grant and innovation consultancy. We have been active for more than 35 years, growing from being a startup in the Netherlands to a multinational group with offices in 8 countries in Western Europe and more than 400 people. We work with lots of partner clients covering all Europe, and the group is composed of multiple labels and brands covering strategic and innovative sector from energy, mobility to life science and education. We also leverage IT developers to support our strategic services and developing our own innovation management and intelligence tools. I'm part of the R&D advisory team, which is part of Ciautec, the Italian brand of Pinot, and we are a dedicated unit established in Italy and supporting the whole group. We are composed of innovation and business analysts and experts in innovation management, design thinking, business modeling, or business plans. We cover the whole innovation cycle with a set of specific services such as the market research and innovation scouting, which helped us to carry out this type of analysis. Regarding the methodology that we have carried out, I have to say that this market research has been carried out within the work package number 3 of the ENTRANCE project. It is the second in a row that we present. The scope of the first one, in collaboration with Alice, was to identify the zero-emission long-haul freight transportation vehicles, while this one concerns on the identification of zero-emission medium and heavy-duty trucks for refuse collection in urban areas, and has been carried out in collaboration and on behalf of the Big Buyers Initiative. Also in this case, we have carried out a four-step approach based on multiple databases that has led to a comprehensive catalog, which is provided as an Excel file. Both the Excels are available on the ENTRANCE platform. The market intelligence started from a free desktop search, consulting available databases such as Drive20 tool or manufacturer websites. And then we used the P&O's proprietarily licensed tools such as WISB for finding additional manufacturer based on their activities in R&D project, for example. And subsequently, an in-depth analysis of the selected vehicles we have carried out to detail their properties and check their market availability and readiness on the market. Then finally, we have also carried out a search for each vehicle, contact search for each vehicle, trying to find people involved in their specific development. Relating the market analysis that I've carried out, I have found 88 different vehicles models provided by 64 different manufacturers, divided between O&Ms and retrofit solution providers. And for each of them, I have been shortly collected some properties such as the power supply, the weight expressed in tons, the payload, the charging time, or the range availability, for example, for the battery electric vehicles. As you can see in the graph on the right, Germany is the country with most of the manufactured vehicles that I found, followed by Italy, United States, Netherlands, and United Kingdom. And most of the vehicles that I have identified are trucks, 73 on the 88, but the rest are sweepers for cleaning streets. Most of them are fueled by batteries. I've also found some vehicles that have more configuration, so both battery and fuel cell or battery and natural gas, for example. Almost the totality of the vehicles that I found are already on the market, and the other few will be shortly. For some of them, I cannot find further information after their presentation or their test, so have been positioned in an uncertain status related to their position on the market. In this slide, I start the focus on the availability of the vehicles I found in Europe. For the specific market, I identified 75 different models with 52 different manufacturers. Most of these are already on the market. And as you can see on the graph on the right part of the slide, there are an equal distribution of the vehicle weight that I found. And this type of distribution, from the next slide, I will focus only on the medium, large, and heavy-duty vehicles. As you can see, I have found 27 heavy-duty trucks already available in Europe, and together with also the medium and large category, I will shift the focus from now go on to represent mainly the trucks available in Europe. And the first representation that I made is the representation of this type of trucks available in Europe per sites expressed in tons and autonomy range.
Sorry for interrupting 1 minute, Marco, but I can see we have a hand raised, so maybe it would be good to see what Bert has to say.
Sorry?
We have a question here. Bert, yeah. Do you have the possibility of speaking now? Yes, good, perfect.
Thank you. One question to the last two charts. I think it seems so as if it would be mixed up the vehicles for waste collection and sweepers. Is it right?
In this type of chart?
It seems as if it is mixed between the sweepers and waste collection vehicles.
Yes, in this case, yes. And later I will focus only on trucks. This is just a representation of the totality of vehicles that I found.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome. So as I said before, from now I start to focus on the trucks, specific trucks that weigh more than 8 tons that I found. On the right, I represented this type of trucks per size and range. You can see that the range expressed in kilometers is between 100 and 500, more or less. But also considering the natural gas fueled vehicles, such as the Iveco Eurocargo natural powered CNG model, the range can extend up to 1,300 kilometers. Here, another representation based on the battery size, maximum battery size, and the minimum charging time. Considering that the minimum charging time specified for each vehicle in the chart is related to battery size considered. This is because more vehicles that I found have more configuration, have more battery configuration, so also different charging times. These are all the trucks for which I found this type of information, and I represented them in this map. Sorry. You can see that regarding the charging time, in the case of the fuel cell propelled vehicles, such as the high-zone refuse truck, the charging time decreased with respect to all the other type of trucks. The last map that I want to show you is the representation of these trucks per charging time and range, and also in this case the maximum range specified for each vehicle is related to the minimum charging time necessary to cover the related kilometers. This is the last map that I want to show you, and then I will show you some example of the trucks that I've identified and the type of information that you can find in the Excel file on the ENTRANCE platform. The first example is related to the DAF CF electric refuse truck, which is a 29-ton refuse truck that have a fast charging option in 75 minutes with a DC 250 kilowatt charger. This type of truck is already on the market as the first vehicle was delivered to ROVA in 2020 in the Netherlands, and it is fit with a VDL e-power driveline. The maximum range of this type of truck is 250 kilometers. And I've done.
Right, we have another question here,
Yeah.
Marco. It says here, is the charging time from 0 to 100%?
From 0 to okay, perfect. Thank you very
No.
much.
No, it's a question. It says, is the charging time from 0 to 100%? When you indicate charging time, I believe if you refer to
here.
Hello.
Yes.
Yeah, it's Sven. I'm the one asking the question. Sven from City of Oslo. My question was related to the previous slide.
This
but
one?
It also applied. No, the one before.
Okay.
This one, yes. It says minimum charging time, but is that from an empty battery to a full battery, or is it from 20 to 80%, or?
No, in this case, from the 0 to 100%.
Okay, yeah, and that also, when you're looking at the slides for the vehicles, it's also from 0 to 100%.
Yes, in most of cases, I've done a special proportion to calculate the charging time, because most of vehicles say the charging time with respect to the 20 to 80%. Yeah. But
Okay,
in this case, are expressed from the 0 to 100%.
Yep, thank you.
You're welcome. So I said before, I've done other similar example for the trucks that I found. One of these is the Hyzon refuse truck, that is a fuel cell powered waste collection truck. As you can see here, the charging time decreased to 15 minutes for refueling the truck with hydrogen. And this type of model is already available in North America, but in Europe, the exclusive provider will be Nova, thanks to a 3-year contract deal. Thanks to this contract, it is expected that a number of more or less of 300 vehicles will be delivered in a short time in Europe. And besides this, Norba has also done other type of contracts of deals around Europe for the furniture of garbage truck. So it can also provide garbage truck from other companies and not only the waste compactor equipment. Another example can be the Mercedes-Benz Iconic, that is based on the e-Actros platform. The series production of this vehicle started this year in 2022, and it has a range of 100 or 150 kilometers and a complete charging time of 2 hours. So as you can see here, for example, it expects that the charging time from the 20% to 80% is in 75 minutes, as they have communicated. A further example is the Quantron 2HB27 that can have two configurations, one with 200 kilowatt per hour battery size and the other with 208 kilowatt per hour battery size. It has a charging time of 1 hour and a half using a DC charge of 150 kilowatts. This type of vehicles have been already on the market since the 2020, mainly in Germany. Quantron communicated also a possible configuration with fuel cells, but there are no updates about that to date. So, and now I can shift the next slides that's showing an example of the D-Wide zero-emission truck from Renault that was launched last year in the 2021. The first trucks were delivered to the French waste management company Suez. It's estimated the cost of the truck of more or less 350 €100,000, but not clear if this price consider or not the waste compactor equipment. In any case, this truck is the available truck with more range of ability of more or less 315 kilometers. Another example is the L series truck of Scania. Also in this case, the truck was launched last year on the market. They have deals with urban waste handling company in Copenhagen region. They have already delivered 2 trucks in December 2021, but the contract will expect a supply of more or less 80 full electric trucks. Besides this, Scania has also have dealt other orders with other clients for the provision of this type of trucks, and it has a charging time of 2.5 hours using a DC charging truck of 130 kilowatt charger. The last example that I want to show you is the Volvo FE Electric that was presented in the 2019 and will be on the market shortly. This model will accompany the FL version that is already on the market from Volvo, and this truck is estimated that will cost around 360,000 euros, but without counting the waste compactor equipment cost. The expected range of ability of this truck is of 300 kilometers. And yes, this is a truck of 27 tons of weight.
Sorry, Antonio, we have one more question from William.
Yes.
Hello, Antonio. Thank you very much for your exhaustive overview of all the vehicles. My question is in relation to the range of the vehicles that is specified here. Of course, these are waste collection vehicles, so they drive a certain route, but they also pick up waste along the route. And what we've seen working with several municipalities is that the energy consumption of the vehicle is highly dependent on how much containers they pick up on the route. So what kind of assumptions are behind these ranges here in relation to how they are used in practice?
Yeah, these are all the ranges communicated by the OEMs, by the manufacturers of this type of vehicles, but they specify that the range can change.
So if it's like used in a city, the range you say 300 kilometers here could be very well only 125 kilometers.
Yes, but it can change more on the behavior of the driver, because these are all vehicles for the urban areas. So the OEMs communicated this. I think that this is the maximum range available for each truck, which is
okay. Yeah. Okay, that answers my question, Antonio. Yes. Thank you. Yeah, thank you.
And yes, this was the last example. And here is the link.
Sorry, Antonio, one more question from Svein. It says, does your overview include information on which vehicles enables EC charging?
EC charging?
AC charging.
DC charging, yes. Most of the vehicles.
I can emphasize on the question. So our experience when we were buying waste vehicles last time was that it was we can only find Volvo that was enabling AC charging. The other vehicles that were coming to the market were only enabling DC charging, which meant that we would have to purchase new charging infrastructure. But with the Volvo, we could use our existing charging infrastructure. So yes. that makes a big difference.
Yes, but most of the vehicles that I found provide both the type of charging, both the DC and the AC.
Okay.
On the Excel file, I specified if there's some recommendation for each type of vehicles and the type of kilowatt per charging, if it's mentioned only DC or both of them,
Yeah.
DC and AC.
That's good. Yeah, thank you.
You're welcome. So yes, I'm finishing the presentation, and yes, here's the link to register on the Entrance platform. And I think that now we can give you the link also to download the Excel of this market analysis in the chat.
Yes, I actually already included it so people can already directly enter from there.
Okay, thank you very much. And yes, so thank you everybody for your attention, and I'm happy to answer further questions if you have any.
Perfect. Thank you very much, Antonio, for the presentation. And as mentioned, all questions are valid, so please just fire away in case you would like to know anything further in regard to the analysis, and that can either be now, or it can be if you download it and have certain questions to how it has been done after seeing it. Of course, please don't hesitate to reach out. So I'm now going to pass on the word to Richard from Rotterdam.
Thank you. I will share my screen.
Yes, perfect.
Can you share my screen or not?
Yes, we can see it. Yes.
Okay. Wait.
Oh, now we cannot see it.
Yeah, I have some technical issues.
These things always happen when you're live.
Yeah. Okay. I think now is screen
Yes,
sharing.
now we
Okay.
see it. Now we see it. Yes.
Okay. Sorry. Good afternoon. My name is Risa Brabus, category buyer, transport and mobility at the City of Rotterdam. And during this presentation, I will present some zero-emission vehicles of Rotterdam. And the first question is, why do we buy zero-emission vehicles in Rotterdam? A third of the CO2 emissions and about a quarter of the air population are by mobility and transport. And transport movements in the city can have a negative effect on the quality of life. And the zero-emission mobility approach gives direction and focus to the activities to make traffic in Rotterdam emission-free. And this approach should realize the following collegeetages. First, we want to 55% CO2 reduction, and second, improvement of the air quality. And making our own fleets more sustainable is part of this approach. And the fleet of Rotterdam is 1,500 vehicles. And the goal is to have a completely emission-free fleet by 2030. And 2030, you might think 8 more years, but vehicles have an average life. So in the short term, we will only have to buy electric vehicles. And the ultimate goal in 2030 has the following sub-goals. Passenger cars in 2023, the light commercial vehicles in 2025, and the biggest challenge is the zero-emission heavy commercial vehicles in 2030. Let's start with the passenger cars. And sorry, this sheet is in Dutch, but I will explain it. So the passenger cars are on the left. And in Rotterdam, we are advanced with the first sub-objective. At this moment, we have more than 400 zero-emission passenger cars. And the next category on the right is the light commercial vans. And this category offers more and more possibilities. And the models that are now on the market have more options for payload and towbar. So the availability of this category is growing. And we think that this year will be larger models on the market. So 2025. But the subject of this workshop is heavy-duty waste collection trucks. And in Rotterdam, we have more than 150 waste collection trucks. And the details on the sheet, we have now 6 electric waste collection trucks in Rotterdam. Last month it are 4, but now 6. And in this presentation, I will explain 3 different vehicles. First, example 1 is the electric waste collection truck reloader. That's a picture down. Example 2 on the left is electric waste collection truck for underground containers. And the last example is the hydrogen sewer cleaner. The first vehicle in Rotterdam is the electric waste collection reloader. And for trucks in Rotterdam we contracted 3 suppliers. And at this moment we contracted DAF, Volvo and MAN. And a mini competition has taken place for this truck chassis. And Volvo won this mini competition. And at this moment 3 vehicles have been delivered. And the special thing about this vehicle is that it's completely OEM, original equipment manufacturer. And in the presentation before from Anthony, this vehicle is also in the sheets. He also explained it. And in 2020, that's example 2, Rotterdam added the first electric vehicle worldwide for the collection of underground containers. And this project is a collaboration between 4 waste collectors and VDL Translift. And VDL Translift has a lot of experience with zero-emission transport buses, public. And the driveline developed by VDL for the electric buses is integrated into the truck. VDL Translift purchased a vehicle as a glider. And a glider means that it is the chassis and the cabin of a truck without the engine and transmission. And a glider will avoid excess materials in the project. A year later, in 2021, we updated the vehicle. And in 2021, we have decided to double the battery capacity from 175 to 350 kilowatt hours. And at this moment, we have 2 of these vehicles in our fleet. And the last example is the hydrogen seal cleaner. This is also the first hydrogen seal cleaner in the world. And this vehicle is retrofitting. At the start of this project a few years ago, hydrogen vehicles were not direct available from the truck suppliers. And the basic principle in Rotterdam is that we use electricity from batteries. However, this is not possible for this application. For this reason, we use hydrogen. And there are also challenges in our fleets, also the market gaps. And for example, a challenge for us is zero-emission vehicles for winter equipment, or the vehicles for container transport. However, these challenges are possible in the short time, we think. The number and capabilities of zero-emission vehicles are increasing. And that was my last sheet. Thank you for your attention.
Thank you very much, Richard, for this presentation. And I'm now giving the word to Peter.
Hello, everybody. Gothenburg calling, as you say. I find my presentation. Hope it will work. Does it look right for you?
We see your screen. We see your screen, yes.
Thanks. Well, to start with, I have to say that some of you participants in this group already have seen most of what I'm going to talk about now, but there is some news in it, and many of you haven't heard at all, I think. I work for the city of Gothenburg. It's called the Sustainable Waste and Water, and I work there in the waste department. And I have to say from start that we don't buy the trucks ourselves, but our contractors do. But we make all the demands for what types of trucks we want them to use, and we also cooperate very closely to make new decisions around what trucks we are going to use. We have about 120 heavy trucks that are collecting waste on our behalf. The first one we got, electric truck, was one that the type you have seen. It was the first electric Volvo that was built as an electric truck from the beginning. We ordered this one in 2016, and it took 2 years to build and 1 year to get all the registration and things like that fulfilled. So this started to work in spring 2019 and have worked nearly until now. Just for the moment it stands still, so we are not sure what happens with it, but it has worked perfect in at least 3 years. And this was a prototype, so it's nothing strange with that. This was with the first generation of batteries. Every unit has 50 or exactly 49 kilowatt hours, and we could just have 3 of these packages to manage to get enough waste on the truck, because that's a big issue. And talking about that, I will just manage to tell you that the analyzing part before you buy an electric truck is very important, so you get it optimized concerning range, weight, and things like that. As you have heard, it's many things that what's the word? It's the weather, if it's cold, how many bins you're empty, how the driver drives, and so on. So you have to look into all these aspects to get the right mix of energy and waste possible collected. We made a procurement for a quarter of the city of Gothenburg in 2018. When in that procurement we write that it should be at least 5 heavy trucks with that was electric, and the rest could be biogas. This was before we knew if the truck will work, so it was a little tricky. But the contract started in March 27, and they all have worked very well since that. The first two delivered has the first generation of batteries, but the trees to follow got generation 2, that there where every unit of 66 kilowatt hours. And now the newest one now is delivered with 90 kilowatt hours per battery pack. The one in the right is a Scania hook lift that we also use. We have a totally electrified recycling center there where all the trucks and machines within the center was electric, and then we got this one to make the ranging and emptying of the containers also electric. The company that won the procurement with the 5 trucks, they also use another, a little bit older, Dennis Eagle truck. Unfortunately, it's behind the red truck here, but it's also in work. But we have, it's not just buying trucks. We have had a lot of work to manage to get charging. Until now, we have said that, for example, in the procurement, they had to themselves organize so they got night charging, AC charging for the trucks to manage a whole day's work, because when they started there was just one charging point in Gothenburg, and it was too far away from the area where this was going to work. But it's happened things now that in next year we will have at least 10 quick charging stations, as I see it, in Gothenburg. Not always in the best places for us, but still works there. But still there is a lot of question around charging, because it takes some time, and you don't have time to wait for another truck to charge first and so on. So there's a lot of work to do. So the alternative could be hydrogen. In the first, we said that when we started with this in 2016-17, that we had the battery trucks in the center of the city, and then the hydrogen in the outer parts because of the range. But with the development of batteries, we see that the range is not so big issue for the trucks anymore. But still there is a problem to get payload enough. So that's a good reason to consider to have hydrogen trucks instead. But as for the charging of the batteries, you must have fuel stations for hydrogen, and that one you see is the only one in Gothenburg right now, but one more to come in beginning of next year. The plans in the future, the city of Gothenburg's goals is in many ways similar to Rotterdam and what Richard says. But the plans for city implements that electrification is the big thing. We are going to make 2 new procurements that where the new contracts will start 2025 and 2027, and we have not decided how much trucks we are going to ask for, but I think that we will increase the numbers. And for the other halves of the city that is managed by the municipal-owned waste company Renova, in which we cooperate a lot with, said that in the plans is that at least 30% of the trucks will be electrified in 2026. So that means for our part that we hope that about 60 to 70 electric trucks will be on the streets in 2027, and that will be both battery and hydrogen. So to end up the whole, when we talk about battery-equipped vehicles, we say that the market and the supply of battery electric trucks is growing very fast, but we see problems to get, for example, 18-ton trucks with the short wheelbase that is the type we want in the central city. And charging problems we already talked about. Coming to hydrogen trucks, they are still too expensive, and we hope that this will change in the future. So to summarize it, we are working with battery and hydrogen and working as fast as we can. That was my last picture. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much, Peter, for the presentation. If anybody has any questions, as you know, you can either raise your hand or just put the comment here in the chat. And in the meantime, I'm going to pass on the word to Anja from the Big Buyers Initiative, so she can present the lessons learned and the market gaps that have been identified.
Indeed. Welcome, everyone. Good afternoon. My name is Anja, working for Eurocities, but above all, I have the pleasure to facilitate the collaboration between many big buyers that are indeed looking now to become carbon neutral by 2030. And so they found the obstacles, as Richard has already said, of moving in particular heavy sorry, wrong slide, of course. Something always has to happen. Try to do too many things at the same time. But yeah, what basically, yes, what they are trying to do is really trying to change their fleet towards electric. And they are really finding it a challenging task because of certain market gaps that they've identified. So a lot of what I will present is indeed the results of the collaboration that have been taking place in the last 3 years and the market dialogue that we had together with some of the cities, among which Rotterdam, Richard, and Gothenburg, Peter. So everybody feel free to jump in and also mention if there is something that you would like to add. So Big Buyers, just very briefly, we are promoted by the European Commission, DG GROW, and the idea is really to work on strategic procurement, so really bringing together public buyers, among which cities, that want to work together on a sustainable product or service that either doesn't exist yet on the market or is not so widely available and roll out. So maybe it is available, but they're still not fulfilling the needs of all the buyers. So it was really about joint collaboration. We have been working on 4 different areas of work. It's very also interesting what colleagues in the zero-emission construction site have been working on, also about heavy electrification on heavy-duty machineries. But I had the pleasure really to collaborate with the electric heavy-duty vehicles working group that is focusing on 2 different areas of work. On one hand, the electrification of heavy-duty vehicles, and why waste trucks, strict cleaning, or heavy delivery. It is because when buyers have mentioned that when they look into purchasing vehicles, there is already quite a lot happening, for example, for electrification of delivery, for the trucks, but there is a lot less pushing the market for those vehicles that indeed are a bit more niche, like waste collection or street cleaning, that are mainly the remit of cities, because usually they are the one in charge of such a service. So while for other type of vehicles, there is a strong push even from private actors, from big companies that are also pushing quite a lot market advancement, for waste collection is still not the case, because it's, let's say, the buying power, it's a little bit less. So we have been working a lot with Rotterdam, so with Richard, but also with Amsterdam, Oslo, Cologne, Helsinki, Gothenburg, Lisbon, Porto, Malmo, and other cities that are really pushing and want to collaborate together. Because as you can see, the examples currently on the market are not a lot. Why working together makes a lot of sense, and also why also collaboration with the ENTRANCE project made quite a lot of sense. On one hand, of course, we want to try to accelerate the acquisition of electric vehicles. A lot of the cities have ambition by 2030 to become climate neutral, so time is running very quickly. And but also what we wanted to push is also market option availability, especially for EU peripheral regions, is something I will touch, because market availability across Europe is very uneven at the moment. It's not the same if you're procuring from Germany or if you're procuring from Oslo and from Lisbon. And above all, yes, there is still quite a lot of research and development efforts to be done by these companies. So also a collaboration between the buyers and the companies. It was interesting. So we have worked quite a lot also because we want to push the purchasing power of cities, also share life cycle assessment methodologies, but above all share what is available on the market, what is coming up, because indeed buying between a first category of, like Peter also mentioned, buying vehicles when they had at the first level of battery evolution, or maybe waiting a couple of years for the advancement of batteries, will make also a difference and then in the quality of the service for waste collection and street cleaning. So some of the lessons learned, I don't have fancy slides, but these are, I think, really key. And again, this is really coming from what we have been observing in the last 3 years. What is really interesting is that to see this country relationship, because the availability of vehicles is so different across Europe, we could see that those countries where indeed there is a majority of vehicles, or there is a majority of companies that are providing these vehicles, of course, it's going to be a little bit easier for buyers to access and roll out. And this was the case, well, you might know, Gothenburg hosts the Scania and the Volvo factory. And of course, you can also create a really strong relationship between the buyers and the market operator in the case of service provider, but also the company that is providing the vehicles. So you might have more strong rollout in across different countries. This is something else we have seen, for example, in Germany, or with Renault in France. We have really, we could see the French cities, for example, were more inclined to buy Renault vehicles. So this is a bit about the country relationship, which might affect indeed successful rollout of vehicles. What we've also seen that there is still quite a lot of need in terms of piloting of solutions, because again, based on those cities that are currently using these vehicles, there can be some challenges. So sometimes related to the recharging time, it hasn't been recharged on time. So you go and you want to start your service or waste collection, but it's still not working properly. So it is really still necessary to have a strong collaboration between all the operators. So as I said, maybe the buyer, but also the providers of the truck, but also the provider of the service. Something that is also very much related instead to the market gaps, and hopefully maybe colleagues from the Batteries Alliance will be able to answer later. The current batteries are still, they are still second generation. We are hoping that with the third generation, a lot of the issues related to batteries, and in particular the size of vehicles, will be addressed, because at the moment we have either smaller vehicles or relatively big vehicles because of the battery size, and of course the need to collect a certain amount of tons of waste. So this does not allow currently to have vehicles which are in the mid-range. And for certain cities, this is an issue because of the size of the street. These are always colleagues from Porto and Lisbon telling us, but also from Amsterdam. The city's street have a certain a certain capacity, and the most electric vehicle at the moment will not be able to enter in there simply because of the availability of turning and the size. Data ownership. We should not underestimate how important it is to share the data, again, with a strong collaboration between the service provider, the buyer, and the company, because indeed the data are fundamental to understand where we want to have the running of the routes, and also making sure for the charging time, because you want to have the best approach to the recharging time, making sure, of course, it happens during the lunch break of the people. And above all, data and also electric vehicles, I should not tell you, you know way better than me, it does makes a huge difference who drives and in which condition we drive it, if it's winter, if it's hilly, if it's summer, if it's super hot. So this data ownership is really something that is fundamental, and it is something that it could be a point of challenge between the company and the service provider. And then it is all about people, because we have very much understood that even the kilometers range for this vehicle can change substantially between the winter, between the summer, between who is driving, how open they have their window. It's really, and even in this, when they share the data on the vehicles, that sometimes they have to take into consideration this real life performance, rather than the company, rather than performance that have been tested in help me here. Yeah, that are not performance that have not been tested in real life circumstances. Because also what has been incredibly interesting, certain cities have been mentioning that at the beginning there was a little bit of reluctance from service providers or the waste collection people in using electric trucks. And they had also involvement of the trade union, and they said, no, we don't trust. So there has been also quite a lot of work in engaging the workers in being more, in facilitating the use of electric trucks. And then Peter, when we went to Gothenburg, said that now, well, the service provider of the waste collection for Gothenburg said now everybody loves this vehicle, but it takes also a little bit of time. So the market gaps indeed just can be summarized around 5 different areas. On one hand, there is still a big difference between owning the trucks and buying the service. And sometimes it is a bit more difficult to understand the total cost of ownership between being able to provide, so between procuring the service and between saying, okay, I will buy directly the vehicles. What will be also the challenge, or is it better if I lease the vehicle? Sometimes it's a bit harder for a city or for a buyer to understand what will be the best option. Then the second issue is very much related to the batteries and recharging infrastructure. Again, this has been mentioned quite a lot. Recharging infrastructure can be a huge issue when it comes to the rollout of these vehicles. And the size and the type of vehicles, again, very much related to the batteries. We saw that while in the latest years there has been quite a lot of advancement when it comes to street cleaning vehicles, it has not been the same for waste collection size of vehicles, and particularly there is a huge market gap in mid-size vehicles. And then maintenance. It's a little bit of a chicken and egg problem. We will discuss with some companies that will be ready to sell in certain countries, but they do not provide the maintenance service yet. So yeah, and then of course, no buyers will buy without being assured that there will be a maintenance service provided. So this is a little bit, again, a chicken and egg, because companies said, I will sell to you, but I will not have a maintenance service until I know that I can sell to you. And this is especially true for peripheral region. So some companies and maybe Oslo can tell us, maybe they were thinking, okay, should we set up our own maintenance service? Because if we want to advance on these vehicles, it could be still an issue. Last but not least, the most important issue is related to financing a new fleet. And maybe this has become even more problematic with rising prices, issues with availability of vehicles. The companies have been telling us that when you want to buy a new vehicle, you have now a waiting time of more than 1 year because of lack of really the material that provide the vehicles. And at the same time, of course, it has really a high cost. And for some cities, it comes down to say, okay, if we really do want to finance such a transition to zero emission fleet, will we have to cut services in other area? Will we still be able to have this just transition for climate neutral cities? And this is why, for example, the support of startup and SMEs could be fundamental really when it comes to retrofitting of solutions, because then you might have a vehicles that is still, let's say in maybe the third year of work, and it will be an ideal candidate to work for retrofitting. So financing is really, really the biggest challenge. If you're interested to know more, I invite you really to go on the Big Buyers website. We are coming towards the end of this round of collaboration. And so I will try to write everything that we have been learning in the last 3 years in a couple of documents that will be soon publicly available. And we will share also in an event next 9th of November in Brussels, where Richard once again will have the honor instead to mention all of these market gaps and our work of the last years. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Anja. And to go a bit more into details with two of the barriers that we have seen. On the one hand, we had the current status of the batteries. And here now, Wouter, I will pass on the word to him so he can do a presentation of the strategic agenda from the batteries partnership. So we can know what's really coming up and how the batteries will be advancing in the upcoming years. And in regard to the funding barrier that you mentioned also, Anja, I will personally be giving a chat about this immediately afterwards. So Wouter, the floor is yours.
Thank you, Janet. Thanks all the previous speakers. It's been very interesting for me to attend this workshop as well from the battery side. I hope I can give a little bit of a peek into what's happening in the battery research field in Europe. As you will see, we're making better batteries. There's still then one step removed to get the battery into the vehicle. So it might be a bit high level and not as concrete as the previous presentations, but I hope it's still enlightening to see at least where we are going. So my name is Wouter IJzermans. I'm the Executive Director of the Battery European Partnership Association, or BEPA. We are partners in the BAT4EU partnership. So what does that entail? The BAT4EU partnership is a public-private partnership between the European Commission on the one side and then members of the battery industry and research united in BEPA on the other side. And basically, in the Horizon Europe research program, which lasts from 2021 to 2027, there's been 925 million earmarked for research for better batteries. And the role of BEPA is to, on the one hand, provide the European Commission on input where that 925 million should go, like what are the critical points to address. So therefore it's been very interesting for me to see all the topics that have been discussed before. And on the other hand, the members of BEPA have committed to invest a similar amount of investment in battery research. So in a total 1.8 billion will go into it. I'm sure that we will surpass this 925 million. There's a lot of money going into battery research in Europe at the moment, but at least this is the minimum that's being put in by the European Commission and BEPA members. So we have signed the official contract with the Commission in 2021, and we have already had 2 rounds of research calls. And the first projects that came from the 21 call have been up and running basically since this summer. So we're quite new. It's basically been a big push on this from the Commission side, and as a partnership, we're now trying to make sure that those projects deliver and get those results out to the community and to the end users like yourselves as fast as possible. The calls for the next work program, so that will cover the years 23 and 24, will be published on November 28th by the Commission, and will feature another 16 calls on different calls on batteries. Those calls are good to know open to all, so you don't have to be a member of BEPA to then apply for funding through one of those calls. And the mobility calls tend to be application neutral as much as we can. So we don't try to write a call for person vehicles, for heavy duty, for trains, for planes, for boats. We just like to keep it at a level that it's open for everybody to come up with their proposals, and then the best ones get picked regardless of the application. Of course, then there is something in the call that we ensure that it's all the lessons learned are as widely applicable as possible. So we don't just get projects that are too narrowly focused, but there must be some cross use of those goals. So who are in BEPA? It's a very good mix between industry and research in the battery field. So it's like 91 industry members, 74 research organizations and universities. We have also 36 associate members. So this is either trade organizations or mostly regions that are looking to invest in batteries. We have not yet any municipal members, although we had some inquiries and discussions, for example, with Skellefteå, which in Sweden, which is where the Northvolt battery plants are located. It's interesting to see that in the industry members, we do have some OEMs that were mentioned in the presentation before. I think I saw Renault, I saw Volvo, I saw Scania. So those are, for example, members of BEPA and very much involved in our work. Our objectives are threefold. First, we want to invest not only in making the current batteries better, but also creating new different technologies to have a little basket of technologies, so we don't have to pick the winners, but the market will lead us to what's the best solution. And then we will want to do that for two fields. On one, for mobility, like I said, mobility in the broad sense, but also the cost and effective integration of renewable energy sources in the power grid, so basically stationary storage to save the solar and wind energy when we need it. If we look at our KPIs for the partnerships, which have a baseline of 2019, when we first thought of that this partnership might be a good idea, and have a final target in 2030, which is when the last program, so the last topics that will start in 2027, will finish. We have goals for the performance, so a higher energy density and a higher power density with a changing rate increase. So it's below 20 minutes, I think, for a 80% delta for passenger EVs. I don't know how that exactly will relate to the heavy duty vehicles then at the end, but we're looking at both increasing the energy density and also making that fast charging possible. We're also looking at lifetime increases. So it's not said that every battery will have this increase in performance, but there will be batteries that have this increase in performance. That's the goal. So there might be trade-offs to be made. So for example, we can have more durable batteries or more higher energy density batteries. They're not like necessarily in the same cell, but these are our goals at least. And then we hope that then in the range that will exist, there will be a good enough choice for the different applications, like for example, waste collection. We also have targets to increase the competitiveness of the European battery field. We have a cost reduction target, which is way ambitious given the current market developments, but we have to see that. It's mostly, of course, now related to the raw materials prices. We'll see how that will develop in the next years, but also just to get the manufacturing here at home to make sure that it's more competitive there. And for the rest, we're also, of course, looking at safety and reliability targets. But top line is that we are really looking to improve the power and energy of the batteries. So what do we focus on in terms of the value chain? We don't focus too much on the extraction of raw materials for batteries. That's covered by other parts of the Horizon Europe program, where we're really looking at making better advanced materials for batteries, then collecting those into cells. And then you see it gets a little bit less dark, so we're a little bit less involved in actually developing the pack and modules for the different end uses. and the integration of the application. So basically making specific packs for high-duty vehicles and waste trucks, that's less of our focus. And that is where we work together, for example, with the 2-0 partnership on zero-emission road transport. They are very much taking up that part of the value chain. Where we come in is indeed looking at some improvements that are will facilitate all modes of transport. So, for example, better integrating the vehicle in the structural elements of the end vehicle is useful for trains, planes, and automobiles. The software side, the battery management system is useful for all. So that's where we look into, and we will take it back then more at the end of life, so the recycling and the second use part. So that's basically where the battery partnership is focusing on. We have set this out in our strategic research and innovation agenda that covers now the 3 areas that I just mentioned. First, raw materials and recycling, then a long part on advanced materials and manufacturing, and then the third one, which is I think the most interesting here, is the battery end users and operations, where we try to highlight some parts where we can get a cost reduction and better integration into the vehicles. The whole SRIA is about 100 pages long, so that will can be read here. In terms of interesting ideas, we're also working on fast charging in the advanced materials category. But then the actual implementation that's on the battery side, but then on the street infrastructure side is more covered by the 2-0 partnership. So we're working closely to make sure that those line up as well. What we also ask you is if there are specific market gaps, as just mentioned, come and tell them what they are to us. That will be amazingly helpful. We're currently in the process of updating the SRIA. This is a process that will last between now and the end of January, so there's not that much time. However, it's a cyclical event. So basically we have the condensed SRIA, then we work on broader roadmaps per different application. And then we condense it again in the SRIA. So even though the SRIA will end in January, then we will start this whole process of making more detailed roadmaps, and where your input is also super valuable. These SRIA and the roadmaps are co-developed with the think tank called Batteries Europe, and reflection on on what are the research needs for certain end uses like waste vehicles, and what need to be the target KPIs. So like, for example, we need better improvement in those mid-size batteries. Those are sessions that are in theory open for everyone. So if you want to give your input, you're very welcome to join us. I added the registration link in the slides. And then what we do as BEPA members is we take all that big baskets of research needs, and we take the ones that we think are benefiting most for European funding and put them in the Horizon Europe work program. And of course, then if there's something that's very flagged as important, but not we don't think it's useful to do this on a European level, we present it to the regional and national governments to say, this is very interesting, please fund this as well. So it's then not lost. We try to give it a place at least somewhere, or we'll just hand it over to 2-0 if that's where it needs to be. To single out something for the 2-0 SRIA, they have actually a specific action on logistic concepts and solution for zero tailpipe emissions. In their SRIA, it's page 59 and onwards, which really looks at this. It tends to focus a bit on the urban and semi-urban, but it's really about finding solutions for this kind of vehicles. So last mile logistics, but also waste collecting vehicles. It's very interesting. Where I see possibilities maybe to have something on waste vehicles is one of the calls that will be presented on the 20th of November. So this is a bit of a sneak peek. There will be one on the development of technical and business solutions to optimize circularity. And basically what we ask is for proposals to present a certain use case and look back into the value chain, how we can optimize it to really fit that use case and improve circularity and sustainability there. So I could imagine a use case that's very specific like this for waste collection, that you present that as the end station, and then just like get partners on board, like certain OEMs or companies that can help you with designing the optimal battery system for waste collection, and doing it from the demand side down. I think that could be very interesting. It focuses on certain business models, and also this sustainable design on that one. So that could be an interesting use case to use. Another chance, which is kind of outside the partnership, it could be used as a tool for, I think, definitely the city governments to influence also our work program, is to work through the missions. 100 cities now have been selected to be part of the EU mission on climate neutral and smart cities. I don't think there's much budget in itself in the missions, but they can sort of cuckoo on the budget of the partnership, so they can come to us and say, we have an idea, can you help us? So for example, I could see in the future, if the need is there, to have a mission, under this mission, a call for climate neutral waste collecting trucks, that we will then have to organize, I think, us together with Zero, or maybe even together with the hydrogen partnership as well, and to find the money for that. I think that could be something that could be developed, but I think then it's for the people who have better contacts as well within the EU missions to create the demand over there in that platform, and I'm sure it will trickle down back to us. The last thing that I added, but it was already covered by Richard as well, is like something that we tend to see, also what you see with customers is like, no, I'll wait until there's better batteries. That's sort of to postpone the investment thing. What we see more and more, at least for heavy duty vehicles, is that halfway through their lifetime they get upgraded to a more high density pack. I give the example here on the side where I just came across it last week in Eindhoven. They have replaced the battery packs of their buses halfway through the lifetime, roughly after 6 years. And actually the battery packs that were left were still good. They just replaced them because they have longer range and charge faster. And then actually the old ones have found a use as a backup for the grid. So that's very interesting for us, because that's also something we cover, this second life possibility. And it might be the kind of the kind of income stream that makes this transition worthwhile. So you're not dismissing those old batteries. There is actually somebody who could pay for this, and you have the business case there. But I think it was already mentioned that this upgrading part is part of your strategies. So I'm very pleased to hear that. If there's any questions, how to join, how you can influence our work program, please just contact me through the email, and we will set up, me and one of my colleagues will set up meetings. And we are, as a partnership, we're public-private partnership, so we also have a sort of public service function. So if you have questions about European funding for this kind of thing, just hit us up, and we'll, if it's not for us, we at least have a good chat, and we'll lead you to the right agency that can help you further. So don't hesitate.
Thank you very much, Wouter. We actually have 3 questions here in the chat that maybe you can just continue with before we jump on to the next presentation. So the first question is, has the energy crisis already affected battery prices?
That's a big question. I think the raw material prices now is sort of the first point that has had a direct impact on batteries. Actually, the European Commission will release a report on the competitiveness of different sectors soon. I think a battery sector is one of them. I think they have done a better analysis on that. So we will see that soon. As for energy crisis, what you tend to see is that the bigger producers that are already online have this kind of long-term purchasing agreements with for their electricity. So basically, this one wind farm provides the energy for a certain price for a certain factory. So then they are less dependent on the market to buy their electricity. So they're sort of shielded from that. Of course, every new battery plant that comes online and doesn't have a contract yet will be affected. But we'll have to see how this evolves in the future. But generally, those long-term contracts shield as well the producers.
Perfect. The next question is, in the current market situation, we have seen that being too dependent on single countries for raw materials makes us vulnerable. Is this something that you're also considering in regard to batteries?
Yes, this is key for us. On two fronts, because so on the one hand, I think actually where the raw materials come from is not that much of a dependency issue, because there are quite a lot of countries that have resources. Only certain ones like cobalt in the Democratic Republic of Congo is an issue. But if you look at where the real bottlenecks are is in processing. So a lot of our calls that do tackle the raw materials part, so we don't tackle the extraction part, but we do tackle the processing part to get the processing of those raw materials also up in Europe. So that's the first leg. And the second leg is that we try to push in those differentiating technologies, technologies that are less dependent on those critical raw materials, so that we need less of them, or that those materials really go into where they have most needed. So you don't need to have to be super energy dense, super lightweight to have a storage in the grid. So maybe we can use different materials there and then save the lithium and the nickel for high performance needs like heavy duty vehicles. So that's the two ways we try to tackle that.
Perfect. And then the last question is, how does the KPIs in BEPA relate to the battery directive?
Yes, we have certain, but we are ahead of the curve. I don't know if you, sorry, I'm breaking up maybe, but we are ahead of the curve. So we had to put down these KPIs before. Sorry, maybe I have to switch off my camera to. So we had to develop these KPIs before the battery regulation actually became a fact. Those will be adjusted if the battery regulation is more tight than our KPIs. Then our KPIs will be matching the battery regulation. So yeah, in the end, in terms of sustainability, recyclability, we want to be in line with the battery regulation, definitely.
Perfect. If there are no further questions, I will proceed now also with my presentation in relation to the funding opportunities. We have already been highlighting some of the programs, and thank you very much, Walter, for mentioning, for example, the missions calls, especially considering that I believe we actually had in the call today several of the mission cities. And I also just sent a couple of the topics that will be open for 2023. Unfortunately, I cannot share all of the details, but just so you can kind of get a short check on what is coming up for next year. And also the net zero cities has been mentioned by Anya, which is in fact also one of the initiatives that is directly related to the mission cities. And I think it's also important to highlight the DUT partnership call that's also currently open, and that actually also touches upon energy efficiency in local mobility and transport, and this includes actually also waste management aspects. So I think that could also be directly related. Now we're talking about here the testing and demonstration of the solutions. We're not testing or we're not talking about financing the entire fleet of vehicles. So that is, of course, a bit of a different aspect. So I'm just going to share my screen. So I believe you can see my screen now. Otherwise, please just shout out. So as already mentioned, access to capital, especially at scale, is really critical currently for the cities in order to execute and reach the low carbon and climate resilient transitions. And the investment in zero emission vehicles is no exception to this, obviously. And this is something that's really especially important for cities in developing cities, developing countries, and emerging markets, as they will really be seeing quite a race growth in the coming decade or decades. So in that sense, I wish to present to you just some of the overall funding opportunities that comes to mind. And I do wish to tell you that I have looked at the one hand on how can cities really go in and finance and support the investments in these type of vehicles, but also on the other hand, what type of funding mechanisms might there be available for the solution providers, and these can sometimes be directly supported also by the cities as the purchasing entity in this case. So it could be a combination of both. But just to initiate with the first one that we have here, we're talking about green city bonds. So this is actually a type of debt that is really issued by both public and private institutions, but really to finance themselves. And it is an instrument that is specifically related to funding projects to meet green infrastructure investment needs. So in this sense, it is extremely important that we're talking about climate-friendly urban infrastructures when we're talking about this type of funding opportunities. So green city funds are actually funds where the cities go in and invest in green projects. These can be issued to meet the investment requirements for the infrastructures as already mentioned. These infrastructures are especially related also to renewable energy infrastructures, and they can really be issued by any type of bond issuing entities. So we're talking about municipalities, utilities, public-private partnerships, and even private companies. So these projects and assets simply need to be relevant in order to make the cities low carbon and climate resilient. And that is why I thought that it was directly related also to the zero emission vehicles, and more specifically the infrastructures that are also necessary for these vehicles. Now, this is something that has been taking place for quite some time. Actually, the first green bonds were issued by the European Investment Bank back in 2007, and it has really grown significantly since then. And we do already have certain green city bonds in Europe. One of them actually present in the call today, which is Gothenburg. But we have also examples from France, in Ile-de-France, Paris. In Sweden, we have, beside from Gothenburg, we also have Stockholm and Örebro. And then in the UK, we have Transport for London. Oh, sorry, I see that we lost Anita here. There we go. Hello, Anita. So specific projects that are eligible for green projects, you can see here the categories. They are listed in no specific order, and they include but are not necessarily limited to those that are showed in this slide. But you may notice that it does include also clean transportation, and really such as electric, hybrid, public rail and multimodal transportation infrastructure for clean energy vehicles, and all with the intention of reducing the harmful emissions. So there are 5 recommended steps in order to, as recommendations on how to proceed with with requesting and applying the green bonds, but it's also important to mention that the Green City Bonds Coalition is an initiative that helps municipalities tap into the green bond opportunity. So since we're running a bit out of time, I will not go into too many details with this, but I will make sure that in the presentation that we publish afterwards, you will have specifically access also to the websites where you can go in and get a bit more information on the recommendations on how to proceed in this, and especially also the contact data to the Green City Bonds Coalition that provides both webinars and services and really facilitates the knowledge exchange on how this has been done before. And there's also direct access to guides and on insurance and specific toolkits on how to apply this. Again, I will not go in and explain to you what is pre-commercial procurement, the PCP, and the public procurement of innovative solutions, the PPI, because obviously those of you that comes from the Big Buyers Initiative, this is something that you are very much aware of, but I do think it's extremely important to highlight it anyways, considering that we are in a situation where one of the lessons learned from this analysis has been that the technologies and the vehicles that are currently available does not seem to be really what the cities need. So I would consider this the perfect opportunity really to look into the commercial procurement and to look into the public procurement of innovative solutions, really in order to ensure that whatever is being developed is really being developed for the necessities of the cities and the specific scenarios also. So in that case, I just wish to highlight again the importance of looking into these aspects and considering this type of promoting also innovation or innovative solutions specifically for your cities. Now, when we go into looking also at the specific service providers of waste management within the cities, I think it's also very important to highlight that, of course, many times these services are not necessarily in the hands of the cities as such. They're many times subcontracted by private entities that have to go through very specific tender procedures. So in that sense, it could be very interesting to into vendor finance, and this is vendor financing programs which are specifically offered for the manufacturers or the product resellers or the distributors who want to offer point of sale with financing solutions. So in this sense, there are 6 steps for how to manage this. Is really initially the vendor contact as such really gets in contact with the finance partner that can offer the financing opportunity in order to negotiate the terms and conditions. And afterwards, the vendor really sells the product to the customer in order to submit the finance option to the customers. And the customers can thereafter confirm that they're interested in it and submit the credit application directly through the vendor. And then the finance partner will go in and confirm the creditworthiness of the customer and initiate the lease. So this is something that makes it very easy for the customer, the end customer in the end, to access funding, and it's a very simple step for them because they don't have to manage the negotiation as such. So the vendor really delivers the product to the customer. And afterwards, the customer confirms the delivery directly with the finance partner, who then finally collects the lease and the finance payments from the end customer. So at the end of the lease term, the customer have several choices here. They can either buy them out or continue to rent the specific equipment. So in terms of vendor financing, there are basically 2 types. You can either look at debt financing with the borrower agrees to pay funds with an interest, or you can look into equity finance, which is a bit more difficult to apply in this specific sense. But under this scheme, the vendor provides provides goods in exchange for an agreed amount of the company stock. So that is a bit more out of reach in this case. So the benefits of this is really that it can boost the sales, and the vendor can earn an interest here, but at the same time the buyers don't really have to worry about the funds in order to purchase the inventory, because they will be getting the funds from vendor through a hassle-free process, and normally with very good conditions. So just to provide you with some examples of how this has been applied previously, in this case, I have two examples from DLL, which is really one of the world's leading vendor finance partners. It's a whole old subsidiary of Rabobank Group, and they provide asset-based financial solutions within several different industries, but it does include waste management. So one of the examples that we have here is from Valoriza in Spain, where DLL has gone in really to provide them with all of the funding in order to be able to enter more public tenders with the Spanish cities, which in certain moments have had their struggles in order to pay the service provider. It can be a long process, and many times in the end here is also the service provider who has to take on a lot of the risk with the payment, because the payment duration is normally extended throughout a long time. And the same thing has really happened with Suez, where Trucks Europe wanted to deliver 2 garbage trucks back in 2020. And these have really also been financed directly by DLL. And I know that there are several other trucks already in negotiation also in this sense. Another 2 examples that we have that also operate within Europe is Midland States Bank and Coach Finance. But you have many other also vendor finance providers and financial solution providers and partners here that could go in and offer these type of solutions to your solution providers. Of course, we cannot leave out the European Investment Bank, which is really the largest multilateral lender and borrower in the world. So they have a very high strategic importance to the climate action and environmental sustainability. And they actually currently have as an objective to invest more than 1 trillion specifically for this area between 2021 and 2030. And considering that transport is one of the largest sector of the EIB activity, actually back in July 2022, the EIB Board of Directors approved the revised EIB transport lending policy as such. And I think it's important to mention that one of the new priorities is green and resilient transport, which includes, of course, reducing its environmental footprint in order to be cleaner and reduce the impact of air pollution and noise, particularly also in urban areas, which means that they will be investing, amongst other things, in the electrification of transport fleets. So this could be quite an interesting funding opportunity to look into. So specifically here, I wish to present to you 2 different funding schemes that the EIB offers. On the one hand, we have the Cleaner Transport Facility, which is an initiative that supports the deployment of cleaner transport vehicles as such, and also their associated infrastructure needs, such as, for example, the charging stations and refueling stations. So the CTF assists in investments in cleaner transport projects, both for public and private stakeholders. So I think you can see here the different types of instruments that they offer. They offer loans, guarantees, or quasi-equity. So you really have also the option of adapting a bit to your interest and to your needs. And to give you, oh, sorry, 1 second. So my screen just froze. 1 second. Sorry for this. Okay, I think I'm back. Sorry for that. But I think it's especially relevant to mention that the eligible cost that they cover within this this facility is specifically the infrastructures and assets, including also the vehicles, and they do also support the project preparation and specific implementation costs. And the types of vehicles really include all alternative fuels, including the electricity, hydrogen, biofuels, and also natural gas. So on the other hand, we also have the possibilities of loans for the public sector. So these are loans that starts at 25 million, and it really is specifically for public entities. So in that sense, the cities also apply here. The type of investment costs, they normally reach up 2-3 years, and the EIB would cover up to 50% of the project's total cost with a specific loan. And the good thing about this is really that the payback of these can be quite extensive. They can really, there's good possibilities for negotiating a long-term repayment of the loan and with quite good conditions also. It's important also to mention that the bank actually also offers advisory support through 3 different types of services. They have the Jaspers, Elena, and also specific Invest EU advisory hub. So each of these 3 different initiatives can actually also support you in order to select which will be the best possibilities for you and what would be the necessary steps in order to implement the project within your city. Just a couple of examples that you can see here. We have, for example, in Spain, this is a previous project that was specifically funded under the transport facility, the cleaner transport. We have the hybrid electrical buses in Spain, in this case, which was implemented in Las Palmas. But again, this is for buses, but you can also easily apply it directly, the same type of vehicle, but in this case, it would be for heavy-duty waste collection vehicles. And also, on the other hand, we have some sustainability mobility projects also in Bulgaria, in this case in Sofia, where we were again looking into the urban mobility, and this included also the electric vehicle charging stations as such. Going on to the possibility of looking into the European structural and investment funds as such, you have 5 different types of funds within ESIF, and I think the most important ones for this specific webinar would be the European Regional Development Fund, the ERDF, which includes also the Interreg program. So I will go into a bit more details with this afterwards, but this really promotes the balanced development in different regions of Europe, and it does focus on greener and low carbon and resilient regions as such. And then on the other hand, we have the Cohesion Fund, which supports investment in the field of environmental and trans-European networks, especially within transport infrastructures. And you can see that I included here in the presentation, which are really the countries that are concerned for the 2021 to 2027 period. So as an example of the Interreg project, which is really, Interreg is a series of programs that stimulates the cooperation between regions in and out of the European Union. And it's funded, as mentioned earlier, by the ERDF fund. So in that way, the example that I'm highlighting here was actually specifically for hydrogen waste collection vehicle project, where these type of vehicles were demonstrated in 7 different pilot sites that covered a wide range of different operational contexts. So this is again something, a funding program that could support you in demonstrating if it really works, and testing if it would really work in your environment. So jumping on to the live program also. So the live program also has already a period of from 2021 to 2027. And the standard action projects through live really aims at developing and demonstrating these specific innovative techniques and approaches, and it also does support the development and the implementation of policy and regulatory aspects specifically for the demonstration and the implementation of, amongst others, clean energy transition. And most importantly, it does catalyze the large-scale deployment of successful technical and policy-related solutions that are specifically related to this. So as you can see, the sub-program of clean energy transition, this is actually a program that is the predecessor of the Intelligent Energy Europe, for those of you that might know it. And the specific areas of intervention that it works at, it does support the development of local and regional investment projects, and it does look at specifically accelerating technology rollout, and in this case we would be talking about a co-financing rate, as the program offers 60% funding, but it is again a program that could be quite interesting. And again, just to give you an example of what has been funded in the past, again very much related to this, you actually already have an example of a large-scale European demonstration program of hydrogen garbage trucks, which took place in a Belgian, Dutch, and German consortium. So this was called Live and Grab HI. So you can see here that the trucks were really demonstrated first. They were tested first in 2 different cases, and then they were demonstrated in many other European scenarios. Once you get the presentation, you can also go in specifically and see the video that I included in the link. And that was really everything from me. Let me just see, are there any questions on all these useful streams of funding, or are you aware of other options? Yes, absolutely. So if any of you have any specific questions, or you would like to add to any of these funding opportunities, please just let me know. So maybe I don't know if anybody don't have any questions. I will just like to go in and make a couple of questions through a Slido. So I'm just gonna shut down for a minute this presentation and open the other one. Mireia, can you please put the link to the Slido here in the chat in the meantime? Okay, 1 second. Okay, so you have the Slido here. Mireia, is it possible to? Okay, there's the link. Okay, perfect. So I will actually just be sharing my screen, I think is better, as you have already. Here we go. Okay, so I'm hoping you are able to enter the Slido now. So as you can see, we will have some initial questions here. Oh. Sorry, there we go. So after knowing the information provided by our speakers today, would you think that zero-emission heavy-duty waste collection vehicles are ready to be used in our European cities? So I'm just going to give you 30 seconds to provide the answers. I'm so sorry for that. I lost connection for a moment there. Okay. So, Mireille, I'm having trouble seeing the results, I'm afraid. I'm not sure why. We tested it earlier, so I was able to see it at that moment. I'm not sure why I cannot see it now.
Try again with the link that I shared with you.
Okay.
We have 11 answers at this moment.
Okay. So I'm just going to try this. Oh, here we go. Much better. There we go. Okay. So here you can see. Okay, so really the conclusion to this is yes, the cities are ready, but still some improvements are needed. So this is the overall result by 20 or 75%. Sorry, I'm just going to take a screenshot of this so we have it for later on. There we go. So maybe we can proceed to, oh, the score is going down. Okay, 69%. It's still good. It's still good. So maybe we can proceed to question number 2. What are the main obstacles to the implementation of zero-emission heavy-duty vehicles in cities? And I warn you already, after this this question, I will be requesting a couple of clarifications, maybe also, and I would also be interested in knowing maybe from the 2 cities that we have already had presentations from today, what was their experience really from in terms of this. Just going to give people 30 seconds to reply. A close call here. Okay, so I think it's interesting to see that the fact is actually not that the type of vehicle that is currently available appears to be a problem, but as imagined, the needs for financing methods, so the access to the finance in order to do this is obviously a high restriction, and at the same time also the technical developments, and I think if I'm not mistaken by the lessons learned within the big buyers, it has a lot to do with the batteries. In this case, Wouter, thank you very much again for your presentation. And then obviously again also the charging and refilling infrastructures that are needed, which again and somehow also comes back a bit to the financing methods. So I would like to ask you, Peter, putting you on the stand here, what was a bit your experience from need for good mid-size option has been noted. Thank you very much, Wouter. That's already a good result of this webinar. So Peter, maybe you can just briefly explain if any of these aspects were an issue to you during your project.
Just first, I think the biggest issue is the charging situation. Especially in the beginning, as I said, the night charging is the first option, and you have to rely on that for most occasions. But in some cases you have to have a separate way. If you have to go out from your ordinary route, for example, you have extra catching up bins, or it's very cold, for example. As you optimize your waste truck for one situation and one type of routes, you don't have the margin as you can have with a diesel tanking, for example. That means that you should have quick charging stations to use the truck as much as you can do. And that has been very difficult to organize. We started 2018 and talk about the needs for quick charging, and it's just now that they are going to be built. So that's the biggest issue, as I think.
Okay, thank you very much for this input. Richard, would you also have some comments to this from your experience in Rotterdam? Oh, yeah, I think we lost him temporarily, maybe. Okay. Okay, let's jump on to the next. Yes, Sami?
Yes. Hi. This charging system is definitely the biggest obstacle in order to implement heavy vehicles, since it's not just the charging, it's a matter of because they are part of the buildings, and they are not separate things. They are part of the buildings, electrical systems, and depots electrical systems. So you basically, what you need to do, you need to update the buildings and their charging cable capabilities in order to be able to have these charging stations. And that's a fairly big investment if you're talking about a really big upscaling of e-vehicles. Thank you.
Yes, thank you very much for that comment. And I would say I would definitely agree on that. And sometimes we're talking about a bit of a chicken and the egg aspects of where should we begin and where should we start, because there has been a lot of developments within the specific vehicles, and really the energy efficient buildings were struggling a bit behind. But just also maybe to inform you, we did not include that today. I wasn't prepared for that. I was prepared for the batteries. But there is also a lot of efforts on the European Commission specifically for the energy efficient buildings, and there are a lot of projects taking place specifically for those aspects. So I think it's also important to mention that a lot of things are also taking place at that. So I can see Richard has had some problems with the microphone, but the biggest obstacle is indeed charging infrastructure. Oh, sounded interesting though. Okay, let's jump on to the next question. What could be the most important solution to focus on to overcome current market uptake barriers? Better financing condition, lower cost, more advanced R&D in batteries and vehicles, or other? I think in this case, other is also specifically related to the energy efficient buildings, as already mentioned, and the infrastructure capabilities as well. Just keeping this open for a couple of more seconds.
Maybe while we're waiting, I wanted to share that we have heard from some German cities that, for example, the German government has put a really high level of tax reduction on electric heavy-duty vehicles that has also clearly supported further development, further acquisition. So very much in line with lower cost. But I didn't want to influence the result.
No, but I think that has also, but you probably know better than I do there, Anja, that this has also been a tendency in many Scandinavian countries, if I'm not mistaken. And that has definitely also increased the uptake. And I believe that's also one of the reasons to why there probably a higher rate of electric vehicles in those countries. Now specifically speaking on behalf of Spain, unfortunately, the electric vehicles are almost twice as expensive, and this is just for passenger cars. So I wouldn't even imagine a big size or a heavy duty logistics vehicle, to say it somehow. So in that case, if it's twice the price, it's something that it puts a lot of restriction on the governmental budgets as well, obviously. Okay, so definitely here, I think it's quite clear. The lower cost is something that is necessary. How the lower cost ought to be achieved can be quite a significant debate, I would say. But I think already, Anja, you mentioned one important policy aspects on the national level, I would say. So it's not just contingent on the local or the regional governments. It's really more a national initiative in terms of tax schemes and tax reductions on the environmental friendly vehicles. So I don't know if from the city council representatives that we have in the call today, what is maybe your experience with these type of tax schemes in your countries? I'm going to call out somebody. Eva, maybe from Köln. Are you there? No? Okay. I think we're a couple of minutes over time, and I think we can notice that. In any case, I'm just going to very quickly take this so we have it in the chat. And I think from my side, then all there would be left to say today is thank you, everybody, for joining the webinar. We will, of course, make sure to distribute to you and make available all of the presentations. And again, you can download the specific market analysis also from the ENTRANCE platform, if that is of interest. And finally, please don't hesitate to contact us or to reach out if you have any further questions or doubts. Anja, is there anything you would like to add before we finalize today?
No, so from my side, thank you very much for really bringing this interesting perspective especially on available vehicles. It's really a successful collaboration between who has the knowledge on what is available and who has the knowledge on what is needed also from the cities. Yes. So thank you very much.
Thank you very much, and enjoy the afternoon, everybody. Bye.
Goodbye. Thank you.
Bye.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.